Welcome to the Healthy and Wealthy and Wise podcast with global sales trainer and professional speaker, Lois Kofi. Each week, it is her goal to share inspiration and education for you to be, do, have the best health and wealth and wisdom for your life.
Well, hello, everyone. Happy Friday. This is Lois Kofi. So excited to be here today on this beautiful Friday. Again, bringing to you every week our Healthy and Wealthy and Wise podcast. And we've just got so many great featured guest speakers that are coming week after week, every Friday, same time, same channel, wherever you're tuning in from, whether you're tuning in live or if you're watching the post-production on YouTube or the various different places where we post, we want to welcome you. And if you're joining us, please feel free to do #live in the comments below. My name is Lois Kofi. I'm the owner of Lois Kofi Enterprises. And I'm here today focused on this week of the Health and Wealth and Wisdom trilogy that I focus on each week. This week is wealth. And on Monday, I did a monologue sharing my journey, my story, on how this week, back in 2009, so 11 years ago, I went through something that was actually pretty traumatic for me, pretty challenging for me mentally, physically, even spiritually and emotionally. I actually filed bankruptcy with my husband. And I realized along the way and learned a lot since then about how, for me, that was a really, really powerful decision. And if you haven't already listened to that story on Monday, I'm not going to reiterate the whole thing because today I just want to bring to you an expert on that topic. And I have with us today John M. Given, right? Because I know there might be a couple of John Givens out there in the world, believe it or not. And he's actually in my BNI chapter. So those of you that are BNI, you know how, like attracts like, and there's some really powerful, amazing people that I've met through BNI, and especially compassionate, empathetic people and people who are real. Every week, I want to have authentic conversations with people who are just that, authentic and real. And so, John, without further ado, I want to introduce you and welcome you to being my featured guest today. And what I'd like to do is just turn it over to you and ask that you share a little bit about your background, your story, and why bankruptcy attorney? Were you born just wanting to be a bankruptcy attorney? And when you grew up, did you have that tie on right away as a young lad? Tell us about you.
Awesome, Lois. Well, thank you for having me. It's exciting to do this with you, and I was excited that you invited me on. So I have a lot of gratitude for that. So I look forward to sharing this time with you and talk about what I do. And there's going to be a wave of bankruptcies. As we're taping this, it's hopefully it's the tail end of COVID-19. What we've been in like lockdown or in some form or another for the last 3 months, or it's been pretty weird. No, I had no idea that I was going to be an attorney, nevertheless a bankruptcy attorney. I had lots of different ideas as a younger person, probably in my teenage years and for a decade, even after that, I wanted to be a pretty serious musician, and I gave that a pretty good stab. I played drum set and had a band together for about 16 years or so, and we did a couple of albums, and never really paid the bills, or we only paid the bills, maybe is a way to put that. And then you get married and you have kids, or before you have kids, you plan to have kids, and you think that you want to provide for them because that's a good idea. So I found myself at a crossroads, and I considered a lot of different things. My dad is a retired chiropractor. I gave some serious consideration to going into chiropractic, and my brother-in-law is an attorney himself, and he encouraged me to consider looking into law, and he thought I had a natural disposition for being thoughtful and looking at things and problems in a unique way, that a lot of people maybe don't. We look at things one-dimensionally sometimes. So I guess you could say that I decided to go into law school. The shortest version is because I was bored and I needed something to do. I don't know that I know too many lawyers who said that they went to law school because they were bored, but no, I needed to be able to provide for a family, and I can certainly say I'm not bored anymore.
Well, I love it. I know you shared with me your YouTube video of your musician days and your background with that, and the fact that you had a chiropractor in your family too, that holistic. When you shared that with me, I was like, wow. To me, that explains a lot about your heart and who you are and seeing the whole person. Would you say that some of those things, even though you said you were bored and you got into law, do you think that some of those attributes bring a lot to your practice today?
For sure, and maybe somewhat indirectly, I got to watch my parents operate their practice, as far as I'm considered my whole life, and the values with which they ran their business, and maybe not obvious, but I was surrounded by other chiropractors too, whether I was being dragged along to conventions and things of that nature, and I got to see how other people ran their businesses differently than my parents did. Um, One of the things that I definitely took from them, and I got to see the insurance world transform around their practice, where in 1 year they would bill insurance and they'd get paid, and then everything got restructured, and it was all different then. But one of the things I took from their practice and apply to my own is treat people fairly, present them with their options. You can give them advice and let them make a decision. Charge a fair fee, provide a professional service. So there's a number of things that I learned from my dad, my parents. My mom worked with him, and I'd sit in the office as a little boy and just watch them run a business. There's a phrase that I really like that is more is caught than taught, and I definitely learned a lot from them without them,
Directly.
Exactly.
I love that phrase. I'm right there with you. I've learned so much as a teacher and a speaker, and being able to learn through the eyes of others too. And I'm sure you have had to learn over the years. How long have you been active in your law practice?
Became licensed in 2012. I opened my own office after working at another bankruptcy for a couple years in March 2015.
Okay, right on. So having been actively, full-time doing this for over 5 years and seeing, I'm sure, all walks of life, right? You've worked with many different people and many different experiences. What has that taught you about wealth and debt and finances? Is there any common wisdom, since we talk about health and wealth and wisdom in this? What have you learned through that journey so far?
I'm in a unique position that I get to learn from other people's mistakes and misfortunes, so that I know that it impacts me when I hear their stories. Whether it's a business that failed, there's going to be a lot of failed businesses. They haven't been able to operate for 3 months, or this. I'll ask you, what's the number one cause of bankruptcy?
Well, for me, and maybe you'll be able to tell me most up to date, but a lot of times it was hospital or medical debt or bills, unforeseen illnesses or car accidents, things of that nature.
For sure, medical debt's the number one cause of bankruptcy. You can be debt free one day, and you can be in 6 or 7 figures of medical debt, shortly thereafter. Pretty amazing, actually.
Right. Yeah. And and I know you don't have a crystal ball, because like you nor I woke up January 1st, 2020, all fired up for a new year and a new decade, right? We know that recessions are cyclical and they come and go, but we had no clue that COVID-19 was going to shut us down, and it was going to, put a lot of businesses potentially out of business or out of business and cause financial devastation for a lot of people. So that being said, we all know that's a fact. What do you see happening in the next 3 to 6 months as of today, based on where we've come so far? It's June 12th, 2020 as the time of this recording. Do you see just an influx of bankruptcies?
For sure, there's going to be a ton of bankruptcies. Most people probably aren't even thinking about that right now. They're just trying to put food on the table, keep lights on. A lot of people have been able to defer some payments, whether that's credit card, car payments, or whatever. Some of those have been able to be deferred, so that's a little bit of relief. We got a tiny bit of money from the feds, and I guess maybe that helped for a moment, right? Better than not. I think about San Diego County because I serve San Diego County, and it's its own unique little thing. So you've got the country as a whole and the world as a whole. It's just, this wasn't just America, of course. But in San Diego, we have some unique things. The cost of living is exceptionally high, right? So even without COVID, I was planning to be pretty busy. Yeah, you put that on top of it. Numbers are stubborn, right? You can't just, you run out of money and then there's a bill due, and, you can't give what you don't have.
And you can only lower so many fixed expenses. Having been there, done that, if anybody's watching, I actually talked to not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 bankruptcy attorneys. And for me, there was a lot of shame and embarrassment with that. It was fairly traumatic because I had so much money. I was making multiple 6 figures. Life was good. I was traveling the world, and it wasn't medical debt that hit me. It was the recession, and being all my eggs were in one basket. I lost everything, and it was painful to make that phone call. So it changed my life to be able to do it. And I know your philosophy, John, on your website, and I'll make sure I post those websites on here too, is, through debt relief, through bankruptcy, it's not something to be ashamed of. It can help you start anew. So can you share with us how you take someone by the hand with compassion and empathy and help them figure out, is this the right thing for me to do? And any testimonials around that?
Yeah, for sure. So something that you just said makes me think about a typical case process, and even just having a client decide that they're going to pick up the phone to have a bankruptcy consultation is sometimes the hardest part of the whole thing, right? Once you decide you're going to do it, you get to gather some documents and meet with your attorney to make sure that the documents are accurate and complete. But that moment where you decide, I'm calling an attorney to see if I'm entitled to this relief under the bankruptcy code, that sometimes takes people years to decide that they're going to do that, right? In so many instances, people try to do what you said. They tighten their budget as much as they can, and there's still not enough money to pay all the bills and to find a way out of debt because the interest rates are, they are what they are. Credit cards are often 24 to 36% interest. That's not uncommon. Of course, they can get you with a 0% introductory rate and all these different things. And that's fine. Some people like to play that game to some extent, but really what you ultimately want to do is have a pathway. You want to have a detailed plan how to get out of debt and how to achieve whatever your financial goals are. So like some of my goals are, in very broad sweeping terms, to retire someday and to be able to support myself. Like that seems pretty reasonable, but my wife and I have a pretty detailed plan on how we're going to get there. There's a lot of work to do, but it starts with having a budget and spending your money on purpose, right? I really like somebody who's not a huge fan of bankruptcy, but who went through it himself is Dave Ramsey. He talked about being intentional with your money. Most people are not. They're just sloppy with their money.
Well, if I can speak to that really quickly, that was what bankruptcy also helped me, because not to belittle anything from my childhood. I love my family. I just grew up with zero financial planning education, zero budgeting, spending, saving, investing education. All we did was we didn't want to talk about money. Because there's all these phrases like the money is the root of all evil. You just save, never spend, be very frugal, all of those kind of things. That's the programming that a lot of us get taught. And I don't know if you would agree with that or not, but that was my experience. And so, yeah, programs like Dave Ramsey and all of those, I didn't find till I was in my 20s. And then when I lost everything, I had no idea where to go from there. So I don't know if you coach people on that or how you guide your clients once they find out that they, I guess, are approved. I don't know if you can speak to that process as well, so that people that are watching who are like on the fence or considering it, how painful or simple is it to go through that process with you?
Well, and some clients are more open to those things than others, right? And I'll maybe kind of test the waters because amongst other things, I'm going through their budget. And if they've got 3 car payments for $500 each, then maybe you don't need 3 cars, and maybe they're open to having a conversation like that. Yeah, and they'll agree. Yeah, maybe we don't. If we need to have that pickup truck as well, we can buy a beater and save $500 a month. That sounds reasonable in some instances. In other people, they just want to discharge their debts and they don't want to talk about those things. And I guess that's okay too. That's their prerogative. It's interesting to see the places where I see people bust their budget is on cars and just eating out. They don't even realize that they're spending as much as they do.
Right.
Yeah. As far as my process with a client, I'll tell you my favorite process. I had one of these this week where my prospective client came in. They knew that they wanted to file. We had talked on the phone a couple days before that. They brought in all of their documents. We had about a 2-hour appointment. I prepared their case. We got it signed. They paid me, and their case is going to be filed today. I love that. That is my favorite client.
So less painful than what I went through.
I have clients who take years to get to that point. They'll make a down payment, and then they can refer creditor calls to me, okay, which can be a tremendous relief, even though we're not getting the case filed right away. Hopefully you didn't have to deal with too much harassing phone calls, but creditors are persistent. They want to collect, and one of the ways that they do so, first they try to be nice. We see that you missed a payment. Please make a payment here, and eventually they start getting angry, right? And they want to get their consumer off balance emotionally. Because if they can get the consumer off balance, they might actually open their wallet and make a minimal payment. It's interesting, the psychology behind debt collection and all of that.
Oh, I through that. I had because I had personally guaranteed my business and I had multiple things going on, I probably had about 20 calls a day.
Yeah. Yeah.
And one of the best things that ever happened was I couldn't pay my Verizon bill. So guess what? My phone got turned off. So that sounds terrible, but I was like, oh.
It's like a moment of peace. Yeah.
So the fact that you do that is incredible, because I don't remember that being a thing, but it's like I said, it's been 11 years, and I wish I would have had someone like you. I did file here in California, finally, when I finally got to that point, but it took years, and I wish it was a very traumatic expansion of time. Do you find that you become almost like a therapist or support system for these folks?
Kind of. Yeah, of course, I don't have a degree in psychology or anything, but I, try to put myself in their position and advise them accordingly. This is what I would do because, and I think parents sometimes have a easier time coming to the decision to file a bankruptcy than maybe somebody without kids, because you have to provide for them, right? And it's not about you first. It's bigger than that. Individuals, I think they have a harder time coming to that. They feel like it's a failure. And one thing that I'll regularly tell clients is, well, you can voluntarily pay these debts back later if you want, because people feel bad. They wish that they could pay.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
really the sentiment.
Do you work more with that sector of the population? Because I also know, and I know a lot of millionaires. That's why I was really attracted by your quote on your website about debt relief and bankruptcy. Once you go through that process, you can find wealth again in your life. And many millionaires have not filed only once, not twice, but sometimes 3 times. Granted, they had businesses involved, and that's a whole nother conversation. But what percentage of your population is more of the medical debt, the job loss, versus those that are in many businesses, millions and things of that nature? Do you have a percentage either way?
Yeah, almost all of my cases are consumer cases, just individuals who have racked up consumer debt. Consumer debt's just, paying rent, paying bills, consuming stuff.
Credit cards.
I'll get a couple of business cases. Business cases are just any case where at least 51% of the debt is not non-consumer debt. That even includes taxes, which are generally non-dischargeable, but it can change the character of a case. I don't generally do a business reorganization cases. There already are a number of businesses that have filed for Chapter 11 reorganization through COVID, right? They've got tons of overhead, and they're restructuring. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Do you, when you had that quote, and I'm going to post your link on here so people can actually see that, but when you talk about wealth, since this week's topic is wealth, do you have any testimonials or any coaching tips from, and I know we're kind of jumping around here, but when it's all said and done, like I know when I filed my bankruptcy, to be honest with you, I had a not so great experience with the attorney. That's why I really, 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 really appreciate what you do and who you are and how you have compassion and understanding for people. It was just like I felt like a transaction and a check, and I left the courthouse and like, see ya. Hope to never talk to you again. Do you have a different kind of relationship in helping people, give them hope for their future? Like, I've filed bankruptcy. Now what? Because when you talk about wealth on your website, I kind of got that sense from you that you really do care about people after the transaction.
For sure. Consumer debt is really an obstacle to building wealth and to being able to do the things that you want to do. If you want to run a business, or you want to buy a house, or you want to be able to retire someday, the thousands or tens of thousands, or sometimes much more than that, hundreds of thousands in consumer debt is a major obstacle towards whatever your financial goals are. You get to kind of decide what you want in life. That's kind of true. You just have to pay whatever the price is, right? Hopefully you're after the right sort of things that'll make you happy or make life feel meaningful. Some clients are probably not going to make those changes in their life. They get to wipe out some debt, and that's a good thing. But until it's like weight loss, right? If you have a liposuction and you lose a couple 100 pounds, that's great. But if you don't do those other things, like diet and exercise, well, that's not really going to be as transformative as it could be. I think that's actually the best analogy.
I love it. I use it all the time because, of course, that's part of why my title is Healthy, Wealthy, and Wise. I came from the health and fitness industry for 19 years and actually kind of burned out because people were always looking for the quick fix, the magic pill, the whatever could help lose the weight yesterday, instead of looking at the future and the compound effect of health and wealth is so comparable. It's part of my tagline. Your daily choices define you, and I attribute that to my sales training career, because every day you do your deal as a business owner, you're either one step forward to creating that wealth and that career that you really want to leave a legacy with,
Yeah.
or you're doing stuff that's taken you backwards. And so I know you had kind of, now we're jumping back to the how does someone know that it's time to file bankruptcy? I know you had sent me your bankruptcy checklist, but and I know you are in San Diego County. We have viewers that we've had people from Minnesota on here. We've had people from Florida on here, people from California. Can you speak to how does someone decide that they have what they need to even call you and begin that conversation?
Sure, that's a loaded question. There's a lot there.
Sorry.
Well, I serve San Diego County, so if somebody is looking for a bankruptcy attorney in San Diego, look, John M. Given Up. You'll find me on probably a number of platforms. And if you're outside of that area, I'm sure there's plenty of bankruptcy attorneys around. You choose your attorney thoughtfully. A lot of times people will be denied a loan. They are maybe got used to and comfortable to doing transferring a zero balance transfer from one credit card. The introductory rate ran out. They're carrying let's say $5,000 or $10,000 balance on that card, and they try to transfer it, and they've done that successfully in the past. And now they've got more credit cards, and they can't get a loan. They can't do that, and they can't pay the thing. And they're taking out payday loans, or they're behind on their car payment. That's where this will really get your attention. Some of the lower hanging fruit for people who really should give bankruptcy a serious consideration. There's lots of details in there, of course. If they can't make their car payment, if they're taking out payday loans, which if you saw, we talked about that the other day, how crushing those can be, hundreds of percents of interest on those small loans. That's where they should really learn what options are available to them. I'm not just trying to close somebody. If somebody comes in for a bankruptcy consultation, we want to talk about their goals and their options, right? And I'm actually happy for clients when I tell them, you don't need a bankruptcy, you just need to make a couple changes here. Yeah, I think that's actually pretty exciting.
That's awesome. I just want to hold on to that for a second, because like I shared with you, I interviewed not one, not two, but 4 attorneys. I spent money with one of them, and I didn't even file. I didn't even get to the courthouse. And I definitely saw that as they just closed me, got some of my almost non-existent money. And it was to the point where I was so devastated. I lost my trust for bankruptcy attorneys in that moment. And like you said, if it hadn't been for when I got married with my husband and had a child, right, then it was like things got real, and we needed to pivot and figure out what was in our best, so it was something we wanted to really do. But there's a lot of attorneys out there, which is why I think it's scary also for people to talk to someone like you, because they're like thinking, are they just gonna, either write me off, or are they gonna just close me hard and take my money, and then there's nothing to show for it? So,
well, I'm not sure what you'll think of this, but I took a number of advertising calls this last week, people who are looking for bankruptcy attorneys to advertise on their platform. And sure, whenever I go into because I like to know what options are available for advertising and such, but when I go into those, there's certain sales techniques that just totally turn me off, and I won't employ myself, right? It's the pressure, remove the obstacles, so sign here, right? And then when they say, well, let me think about this, it's like, well, we've already gone through it. Like, I won't do that, neither as the consumer nor as the, guy doing the consultation.
Oh, you're preaching to the choir. My Ko-fi sales formula, and I'm streaming live in my Ko-fi is for Closers Facebook group right now. So anybody that knows me, I'm 100%. I want to increase people's closing ratios and sales results. And there's a way to do that authentically with excellence and not be that used car salesperson or that person that's just looking for the money and the close. So that's another reason why I brought you on here today, because I know that that's not you.
It starts with don't sell somebody something they don't need. Right?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. And I wanted to throw this out there because we're going to be starting to wrap up here pretty soon. And I put this out there. If anybody has any questions, financial, bankruptcy related, I know that can be. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if people didn't want to ask questions, because it can be a little bit daunting and like, oh, I don't want to put my questions out there because then people might think a certain way about what's going on with me. But even if you had questions for a friend or a family member who may be struggling with that decision, is there any common questions? Until I see questions in the chat, and I haven't seen any yet, is there any common questions or misconceptions that you get when you first consult with someone that are very, very common?
Probably the question I get more than anything is, can I keep my car if I file this bankruptcy? And the answer is, it depends. Usually the answer is yes. But of course, if there's a loan on the car, it requires that the person can afford to make the monthly payment. Well, bankruptcy or no bankruptcy, that's true. And well, there's a limited amount of assets that can be protected in a bankruptcy. And without giving you the long-winded version of that, if somebody had a $200,000 car that's paid for, they would not get to keep that car. It would be sold to pay creditor claims.
That makes total sense.
Most people have an ordinary vehicle, nothing so extraordinary.
Right there. I always joked it was, and I'm not ashamed. I'm totally shameless about this, because I want people to learn from my experience, and the pain and the trauma of all of it was so real. And it took me 5 years to really recover from that. Like, I don't know if they ever have, like, this could be something you could start, John, just a thought. Like, if you guys ever had like post-bankruptcy recovery, because it's kind of like it's a grieving process. It's like I'm owning up to the fact that tough times hit me and I had to start over. I chose to, I got approved, it made sense, all of that. And then now what? And it took me some serious time and personal growth and development. But I kind of wish there was something like that out there for people who file bankruptcy.
Yeah, there's a couple credit counseling courses, depending when did you do your case?
2009.
Yeah, so you had to do some credit counseling, and it's something, right? There's something to it, but it's like one size fits all anything. It never quite fits properly, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, there might be able to be some better support like that out there. I try to be there for clients, and I encourage them, when you have follow-up questions, let me know. And in fact, sometimes there's cool things you can do even after a bankruptcy. I don't want to open that can of worms; it'll eat up the rest of the time. But I do have a case, kind of like I'll tell you. That was one of my favorite cases I had. It was a couple years ago. I had a prospective client come in. He was a business professional, used to making six figures, but he had been living in his car for the last year and a half, and no income, and he was looking for a job. He was applying. He was, and I felt really good about this person, and we filed his case, and he landed a high-paying job after I filed his bankruptcy case. We go to court. Trustee asks him if his income has changed. He says, "Yes, I got a job." How long were you out of a job? About 18 months. Congratulations. So he got his bankruptcy done, got a job, was able to put his life back together. So that just was amazing.
That's awesome. I love that. That's fantastic. Well, I wanted to, because I still don't see questions yet. Kind of always wanted to keep these to 30 to 45 minutes, and there may be, keep coming, guys. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to put them in here now. But I always, when we get towards the end, and I am going to let people know how to reach you and make sure that if they have any private questions, because I know for me, when I was going through my journey, talking to those 4 different attorneys, it was so painful to ask those questions. But since I really can't express enough how approachable and kind you are, and especially if they're in San Diego County, if you're not in San Diego County, it probably wouldn't make sense for you to reach out to John, but he may or may not know other attorneys in other parts of the country too that he could connect you with. We love referrals. But when you hear the phrase healthy and wealthy and wise, which again is the name of my podcast show and my podcast, what comes to mind for you coming from your background, your life experience?
I was thinking about this. What comes to mind is that there really aren't any shortcuts to those things, to health, wealth, and wisdom, that you really have to do the work and you have to be intentional about it. You know, we like our shortcuts. Everybody kind of likes to find a shortcut, right? I don't know that there are really that many shortcuts. Especially as we're talking about finance, mostly, you have to be intentional about it. You can't just leave it up to somebody else. A lot of people will invest in something and they'll just trust, oh, I got a guy. You know, just look at athletes or musicians, right? I got a money guy. That's a terrifying. No, you need to understand what your money is doing and what it's not doing. And the same thing for certain with health and wisdom. There's no shortcut to wisdom.
I was just going to say, it's funny that I didn't want to interrupt you, but when I went through my bankruptcy, it's actually after that I felt like experience is the best teacher, whether we like it or not. They call the school of hard knocks. It's called that for a reason. Like you get knocked down and you get up again, and it's going through those daily processes. No shortcuts. That's a great answer. There's no wrong answer. But that was
in there.
I know, right? I got knocked down, but I had to get up again. I thought of that, so I'm glad you brought that up. Cool. Awesome. Well, and I know that you are such a great resource and knowledge for debt relief and helping people get back on their feet again. So he is offering up to you guys, if you are in San Diego County, whether you're watching this live or the recording, you know, John's going to be here for you and in business to support you. So I'm going to actually, in the comments, I'm going to drop in both his LinkedIn profile, if that's okay, John, and then also his website, so you guys can have access to him and be able to have some relief, even just talking it out. And again, he's not going to be a hard sell or pushing you to do anything that isn't in your best interest. So please do reach out to him and take advantage of that free consultation. As we wrap it up here, John, do you have any other words of wisdom, anything else that we haven't covered that we can finish up here in the next 2 minutes that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I'll briefly tell you one of the things that's unique about me in my practice. There may be a few attorneys offering a file now, pay later option in a Chapter 7 bankruptcy. That's something that I do for clients. We get the case filed right away. They can pay me later. We get the creditors off their back. That makes sense when somebody is being sued or garnished, and we can get the case filed immediately.
Awesome. Because that's sometimes I know I as a sales trainer, I always talk to people, what is your sales cycle? And I'm sure with you, that's a little bit unpredictable, right? Because there's just so many variables, and just the process that, because I saw the checklist, all the things that people have got to share with you, so that you can, go through the process with them, and even just putting that together can take weeks, right?
Yeah, it can. Some people are so well organized; they make it so easy, and other people can never produce a tax return.
Right on. Yeah. I can appreciate that. Cool. Well, we got someone just said this was a great show, great advice. So if you guys appreciated the wisdom of John today, please share this with someone. I know, we don't always want to ask questions about topics that are kind of emotional, and so if you know someone who's maybe been struggling and talking to you as a friend or a family member, please share with them this message and know that, hey, I was in that space. I had just a ton of debt, six figures in after the last recession. And this year, that's why I wanted to bring John on sooner rather than later. There's a lot of uncertainty, a lot of pain, a lot of financial burdens on people right now. And it doesn't have to stay that way. I know for me, it was painful to go through. I wish I would have pulled the trigger sooner and had that relief sooner so I could clean the slate, start over. You say that all the time?
I should have done this sooner. Clients tell me that all the time.
Yeah, shoulda, coulda, woulda, right?
Monday quarterbacking's easy.
Awesome. Well, I hope it's okay too. I wanted to share with them your YouTube video of your back in the day, because I think it's also cool to see someone who's real and have your other passions and knowing that you're a real person. So thank you for sharing that.
Awesome. My pleasure.
Cool. Well, thanks, guys. Tune in next week. Next week, we're moving into, this week was wealth. Next week is considered wisdom. Even though there was a lot of wisdom shared on today, I'm going to be featuring Amy Tyson of Infinity Life Design. She's a Chinese metaphysics specialist, and she's going to be talking about a lot of amazing things on helping you navigate the murky waters of this COVID-19 crisis and everything else that's been going on in the world, and helping you clarify your vision through the things that she has to share. So thank you again, John. We're going to sign off for now. Hope you guys have, as always, as much health and as much wealth and as much wisdom that you can find and create. Until I see you again. Thanks for tuning in. See you guys.